Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Star Wars Uncut. Star Wars Uncut started as a website created by Casey Pugh, and you could make a 15-second clip, like remake kind of thing, of the original Star Wars and put it and upload it to their site, and then they cut together all the best submissions into one feature-length film. It's called Crowdsourcing, where you get a ton of people to work on the same project. I don't know how many people collaborated total who didn't get in the finished film that they edited all together, but apparently there's about 400, and it's from like home movie kind of quality to weird tech stuff, a ton of different kinds of animation, which looks really cool. There's sometimes kids playing in a lot of stuff with babies, and there's some cats in there. It's really all over the place, all the stuff that came in. One of the reasons this Star Wars, the original Star Wars, works so well on a crowdsourcing level is because it's one of those movies everyone's seen. I've seen the original Star Wars like a lot of times, and I can tell what was going on in the real movie. They're not actually making the original theatrical cut. They're making the 1997 special edition because they have the scene with Jabba in it. So, you know, which I was like, oh man, they're gonna do the special edition. I would have gone theatrical, but you know, whatever. That's just me being nitpicky and being like a Star Wars purist, I guess. I mean, I prefer the theatrical cut, but most of it, I mean, is kind of the same. I actually saw this at Lincoln Center at a midnight screening a couple weeks ago. It was interesting to sit down and watch this in a theater. Now, although I definitely liked going to see it at a midnight screening, I think it's the only time it's really been screened for an audience like in a theater before. I like the film a lot more when I can just move my cursor around, because it's on YouTube. It's on their site, Star Wars Uncut, which I'll have a link in this video description. I like moving my cursor around and like watching the end Death Star sequence, or watching, you know, a part in Mos Eisley, or watching, you know, this, and just moving it around. I felt I got a little more interested in it, and when I watched it in the theater, I don't know if I like it as much as a theatrical experience, just because the kind of the homemade video of it I started to get kind of sick of. You know, although I really like the animation, you know, I'm curious though. I think you could really do an animated film like this and it would probably look like astounding. I kind of wish there was more animation and sometimes less of like this homemade stuff. The end Death Star sequence, it messes with the tension and the mood of the scene to do like kind of a funny bit, and I think it's both funny and it's also like problematic because it kind of like detaches me a bit as a viewer. And I guess that's the point. I'm not sure if I necessarily like love that. As a Star Wars fan, I mean, it's cool. Like if you look at like, let's say that Family Guy Star Wars special, right? That to me looks like kind of just corporate synergy. But this is like a real love of a movie. This film kind of captures how you perceive that kind of as a kid, and it kind of like makes you want to have a big imagination. It makes you want to wonder about stuff and figure stuff out and do kind of cool stuff with your video camera, you know? It like entices you. When I watch Star Wars Uncut, that spirit is like alive in this. It has a little bit of an experimental quality to it. You know, I think that is also because this is kind of the first taking an original movie and like kind of remaking it with fan crowdsourced material, and in a way it's like kind of the birth of a nation of what it's doing. It's not that refined. I could see this happening with Ghostbusters and Wizard of Oz and possibly Empire Strikes Back. I feel like this is just setting up a really cool idea of making fan movies. The website won an Emmy. The movie didn't win an Emmy, but I guess by default it did. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's really worth a watch because there's so many different versions of Star Wars and you're like totally sick of it. But this is very pure love of Star Wars, and not in an annoying way that reminded me of like how Star Wars like represented such imagination in its day. When I was a kid, you could always talk to another kid about Star Wars, how it affected everyone before it got like super lame and everything. Like everyone was like, wow, that's so imaginative, and I feel like it made other people want to be imaginative as well, you know, and it inspired people, and thus this movie. So if you have seen Star Wars Uncut and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.